Hello sports fans, we are back with a brand new video on the Sorare channel, and today we have a special guest, my good friend Sean, aka PSU Fans 2. How are you doing, my friend?
Not too bad. I'm looking into the new updates that came out today. Pretty exciting updates, actually. So it's a pretty good day so far. Much different than last week's updates.
Yeah, I'm excited. It seems like we're going in the right direction, which is good. Like, a few updates in the previous few months haven't been amazing, in my opinion. So it's nice to get a positive update, something that we can get excited about. And for you, I think, in Super Rare, honestly, like you could have some spicy rewards in the next few months with stars in Super Rare.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see the stars in the Super Rare division. I think that will be exciting for most people. I think there's just gonna be like a reshuffle of like where you actually prioritize lines, which is good. Instead of just being like always your best line goes in a certain spot, like now you actually have to think about what makes sense. Also, with America and Asia coming back here in the next couple weeks, like great timing from my gallery that has a lot of exposure to those as well.
Absolutely. And speaking of lineups, I consider you one of the best when it comes to building lineups and creating them. I've had a lot of advice from you in the past, which has shaped my gallery quite significantly. So today, what I want to do was essentially have you build my lineups. And then on Tuesday, I'm going to look back at the ones you built versus the ones I would have built and see what was different, and then sort of what decisions were right, what were wrong, that sort of stuff. I thought that would be really good. So I've built the lineups that you've sent me on Sorare, and then I built my own on Sorare data to go through. So I thought we'd have a look first at the ones that you built for me, and we can have a look at some of these lineups because it's a pretty big lineup, say Sean.
Yeah, you have some good lineups. I mean, you definitely have some good stuff to work with. The first thing I did when I looked at these things was try to go through some injuries and some suspension related stuff. Obviously, we made lineups, and then I literally messaged you watching the Sparta game the other day because your boy Vito Van Croy ended up getting injured during that game, and it was basically this was one thing I've always told you is like look at your lineups and come up with ideas on that you build. And I actually built this for you earlier, and what happened? We had a guy get injured and change the whole line, but yeah, look through your lives. Like what I try to do is a general overview is I look through the gallery, see what we have to work with for a given week, see, okay, these are good matchups. These sort of pair well together. What can I do to make these lineups as good as possible? And this was a good week. You have a lot of good lineups. I really like the Champion Europe Rare Pro. I think that's really strong. I think that obviously your other lineups are strong as well. I'm a bit concerned with Gank doing a rotational disaster with the Sarang game on the weekend, and then they having to play Eupen during the middle of the week due to a reschedule due to the snow last week. So have a little bit of concern there, but overall you have some good lineups and you have some stuff to work with going into this weekend, which is always what you want. You want to see those key lineups having great matchups, and you really do have good matchups in most of those lineups.
I'm excited. It's been a very unlucky couple of weeks. It really has. But I'm hoping that finally is like the stars can align. And we can hopefully pick up some big rewards. I'm just noticing now, I didn't realize this before, but the Genk game is Sunday at 8 p.m. my time. That's going to be such a long wait for that game. All weekend long. It's going to be a long weekend.
Yeah, and the thing is too is like as long as Carlson gets a decisive, right, that line's live. And that
True.
line remains live until you see the lineup on Sunday night at 8 p.m. So you just sit there and you are excited about it. And then all of a sudden you're going to get the lineup and you're just going to have a cold sweat going, seeing if everyone's in the line. And then once everyone's in the line, then you have 90 minutes of a cold sweat going on whether or not they'll keep their clean sheet.
Exactly. I'm hoping, to be fair, like I would be quite surprised if either Mackenzie or Cuesta. I think Tresor is the one I'm a little bit worried about.
Yeah, so for me, I think the spot that makes the most sense from a rotation standpoint would be either Trezor or Paintsel comes out for Urasor, who's looked really good in his limited minutes so far. That's the one that I think could happen. The nice thing here is that like you have them in separate lineups, and as long as one of them is in, at least one of these lineups is still in theory available. So hopefully, whatever one of them were to sit, it would be in the worst lineup. Realistically, obviously, you hope both don't sit, which is definitely a real possibility here as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think I would have been a bit more confident had the Yupin game gone on last week and we had
Yeah.
a week in between each game. I'd have been a bit more confident, but yeah, fingers crossed we should see what happens. I'm thinking like Saw has looked really good. If it was me, I probably would bench Tresor for Saw at the weekend and play Tresor against Yupin because he's the more reliable. However, these guys are like 23, 22, 23 years old. They don't necessarily need a full week's rest in between games.
Yeah, I think that the issue here is that the game's on Sunday, so you like have like 3 games in 6 days.
Yeah.
People are definitely going to get minutes reduced at some point during this stretch, which is unfortunate because, like you said, if the Open game didn't get rescheduled from last week, you would have no concerns here. And the fact that we have concerns is unfortunate here because it's a great spot. Obviously, Sarang is a great matchup. Like you're getting Sarang at home. That's where you want to. Those are the type of matchups you make your money. Like people, I think, struggle to understand that not every game week you'll be winning. I think you even probably struggle to understand this to some extent. Like there are certain game weeks and certain matchups where you're just like, all right, if I get a card here, cool. I'm not really expecting much. And then there's game weeks where you get Sarang at home and you're like, all right, this is my time to shine, and you want to make it happen. That's why like the rare champion Europe Pro lineup is so exciting because literally all five of those guys have just elite level lineups. Nobody is a rotational risk in that group. Nobody should be sitting in that group, and everyone's a massive home favorite. So, like, you look at that lineup, you're like, yeah, this is the time you want to make something happen. Whereas, like, the midweek, I know, for example, that Freiburg didn't have as good of a matchup. They played Frankfurt at home. And you're sitting there and you're like, all right, well, if I get a card, that's awesome. But it's not something I expect, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, when we look at your Challenger Europe or Pro lines that we set.
Yeah, for sure. So it's ironically, I think, in kind of order of my favorite to least favorite of the top three. So like, I think my favorite is definitely Champion Europe. We have Freiburg at home to Augsburg, who I think will be I'm really hoping for a clean sheet here. I'm quite confident in the boys. I think they can get a clean sheet. Bayern Munich at home to Frankfurt, who I don't think looked amazing against Freiburg midweek. So I'm hoping, a Bayern Munich, a classic Bayern Munich smash, Kimmich corner assist, it's possible. And PSG at home to Stade Rem. I think after PSG's recent form, where they've dropped some points here and there, I think they'll be looking to try and regain some form. I know Galtier's a bit annoyed at the squad recently for their efforts, so I think that potentially they could go and just absolutely smash that game. Do you know if Verratti's back yet? Because I know you are a big fan of Verratti, aren't you?
Yeah, I think Verratti's back. I'm not sure. He didn't play in the Cup game in the midweek. They actually sat Neymar, but I think I heard rumors that Verratti's going to be back. Let me check on that on Sorare data. But yeah, like looking at these, like if you look at those three different teams that you have incorporated here, you have Freiburg is like 63% win chance. Bayern is like 79. Same with PSG. Like those are going to be high win percent chances, and it does look like Verratti should be back. We'll have to wait and see if he plays. But he has no injury designation currently on Sorare data, is not suspended, did miss the last couple games due to his injury. But I believe Verratti's back. If he's not back, I think Vitinha has been playing pretty well in his role. The issue is like the other mids are just a little bit lacking. But it'll be nice to actually see like the big three be back and start from the start of the game and actually put up some goals. So I agree with you. I think they're going to put up some goals and win, even though their opponent isn't like a walkover like maybe some of the bottom teams in the league. It's PSG at home versus not a super high end team in the league. I think they should be pretty good in that situation.
Absolutely, fingers crossed. We spoke already about the under 23 pro side. Obviously, Sarang is a fantastic matchup, but I think Utrecht at home for Alkmaar is also a good matchup there. Alkmaar could potentially smash. I know they've been on very good form this season. Jesper Karlsson, however, cannot get a DA to save his life right now.
It's been rough. It's been rough. I mean, he was really poor in the midweek. He was not very good in the midweek at all. But again, like people think Utrecht's a lot better than they probably are. I don't think Utrecht is like the end of the world type of team. The nice thing with Alkmaar and what they do is they don't really rotate. So like Carlson's gonna play. They have literally no one to really play. You can pretty much name with confidence at least 10 spots on the Alkmaar side going into the game. Like who's going to be playing in that game. You know who it's going to be, and you can feel pretty good about it. But yeah, like you look at Carlson, and he's been struggling a bit since we had the World Cup break. He has not been great since the return. He did have a decisive. His last decisive was against PSV of all things in November. He since the return had a really good all-around game against Heerenveen. And then against Fortuna Sittard and Go Ahead Eagles, he did not do much at all, which those are two lower level teams in the league. So I think that Utrecht is going to be susceptible. As you see here, you look at what 20 did against them. Everyone on 20 did really, really well. So if you look at Misijan and Cherney, they both had in the mid to high 80s. And Alkmaar is even level, I would say, with what 20 is, if
Yeah,
not maybe even a smidge higher.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think Alkmaar have, in my opinion, I think Alkmaar have got better attack. I think that Twente have got better defense. But I
Yes.
would say with Pavlidis, with I forget the Odgaard. There you go, and Carlson. I'd expect a couple of goals, and hopefully they can come. I'm looking at it here and looking at the fact that both wingers scored against Utrecht might mean there's weaknesses with the fullbacks. Both fullbacks scoring pretty terribly, actually. So I'm hoping maybe that Carlson can take advantage of that. I'm praying. I really want to see on Saturday at 8 p.m. a nice high 70 score going into Sarang. That could be amazing. All-Star Pros are very interesting for me because Napoli have Roma at home. This could go one of two ways because Napoli absolutely destroyed Juventus at home but still conceded a goal. So I'm a little bit nervous because I do have the defensive side of players in this one.
Yeah, it's a thing. Like people will believe that this is a lot worse matchup probably than it is. But if you look at the reverse fixture in October, the away game, Kim Min Jae had 56 points. He had a good, solid AA game. They did keep a clean sheet in that game. So even though they are playing Roma, it's a realistic spot where they can keep a clean sheet. Like if you look at the reverse, like I just talked about away, it was 1-0 Napoli win. Merritt had 63.5. Kim Min Jae had 56. If you get 60 average from the two of them, you're at least in line for a reward and you're still in play. So it's definitely a reasonable outcome that you would have here. So you look at that game, you see Oshman scored, you see Zielinski had an okay game, you see most of the back line was relatively solid. And again, this one was away. So like there's a realistic chance here that you could get 60 or so points out of each of Kim Min Jae and Merritt. And if those guys can produce that, your lineup will remain live going into other players.
For sure. And looking at it as well, Kim Min Jae is in some great form right now. He has hit two very high scores in his last few games since coming back from the World Cup. So I'm kind of hoping a 56 at halftime against Sampdoria as well was huge.
So here's a question for you, Haber. Since I see a lot of yellows there, is there any chance that he has a yellow card accumulation suspension here?
Good question. I don't know when it.
So here, I think it's usually 5 games, but I'm not sure if he's already served one. So one thing I always look at when I look at lineups is I typically will go through each league and each key player and check suspension stats. So I did not do this because obviously it's not really my gallery, so I wasn't really focused on it. But it's a situation where definitely something to look at. It looks like he's not suspended looking at my source. So he must have already served one earlier in the year or does not have 5 accumulated, or maybe like some of them were during the World Cup. But anyway, so it looks like he's good to go. But that's always something you got to take a look at. Like you never know.
There you go. This one's in the Champions League. That's why.
There you go.
There you go. So he's actually one yellow card away, though. It's kind of scary.
Yes. Means that he's going to be on the level. There's a good chance that he misses the Spezia game. You definitely don't want him to miss the Spezia game. You definitely do not want him to miss Cremonese.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, like, if, you know, you guys are going to inevitably be suspended at times. You just want them to be suspended in bad games. Like, this would have been a better time to be suspended than the upcoming games that they have.
Yeah, for sure. I don't mind. Like, Spezia would suck, but I think Spezia wouldn't suck anywhere near as bad as Cremonese because they are bad and at home as well.
You do not want him missing the Cremonese game at home. Like that would be weak. In the reverse fixture against Cremonese, he had 85. They did not keep a clean sheet. He did have a decisive though. He had a goal line clearance in that game, but definitely want a home game against a team they're going to be a massive favorite. You want him to be available and ready to go, not sitting on the bench or worse yet, sitting up in the stands.
Yeah, true. For the remaining players in this lineup, Gararian, I don't know much about the Mexican league. This was actually just an impulse purchase. If you know me by now, I'm a bit of an idiot when it comes to impulse purchases. I've made plenty, and this was definitely one of those. Tigres at home, I like the look of. I don't know, San Luis, Atletico San Luis, are they good?
They're very poor. They're probably one of the worst teams in the Mexican League. I don't follow the Mexican League tons, but it goes to your point, right? You are an impulse buyer and an impulse seller and just an impulse reactor to like each given week. So I saw you bought him, and this matchup is about as good as you can get. Like realistically, like we'll talk about Teddy Toom a bit later, but like Gore Aaron's the spot here is elite for him in theory. Mm-hmm. So it's a spot where like you want to play him, and realistically with the way your gallery's set up, you can only play him here or in All-Star Rare. and using him here frees up Tuma to make the challenger lineup a bit better. So I think it was a no-brainer to use here, but I know that you probably were not going to do that because you were not happy with his score last week,
Yeah.
compared to his scores the previous weeks, where I'm sure you were quite interested in. Yeah, see, there we go. So you have Tuma there. And so Shunin we'll talk about. So I obviously made lineups um, based on the information I have. I'm not as familiar with your gallery as I am with my own. So I wasn't trying to use Shunin, who's been out injured, because I'm not familiar with his injury stats. But you told me that his injury stats, he should be back and good to go this week, which is why you played him here with Bader, and I maybe did a little bit of a different thing in regards to the lineup.
Yeah, I think as far as I'm aware, he's back. I did do a little bit of Twitter searching. That's like the majority of what I do when I'm looking for players, see if they're injured. And I don't think he was on the injury list for Darmstadt, unless I missed something, or I hope I didn't. But yeah, I mean, with how you've built it and how we're playing it, it's definitely a lot less risky the way you've done it than the way I would have done it, because I would have put it in like one of my strongest lineups there.
Well, I think just looking at it in general, right? If you look at the differences I made between the lineups, I think the way that I did it functions better and flows better than how you probably have it.
Yeah.
So, for example, like I used Gore Aaron, whereas you use them in All-Star Rare, which is just sort of not where you're going to be prioritizing.
True.
By doing that, I freed up Teddy Tuma to go up to your Challenger Rare Pro lineup in place of Ibrahim Salah, which has just become in place of Van Croy because Van Croy's injured. But so like by doing that, like obviously Tuma is a lot better than Salah, and that gives me the ability to move Tuma to a better spot. Also, Kim Min Jae is probably going to be more important here than like what Bader is. So pairing him with Merritt, it makes more sense here. Whereas obviously like you have Bader paired with Shunin, so like you're still getting the correlation. My correlation probably just makes a little bit more sense and limits the amount of mids that or of defenders that you're using here, and it gives me the ability to play Tadic, because I believe your line does not have Tadic, who is in a great spot for the weekend. So like you look at your line, like your line does not have Tadic, and if you look here, like you don't even have Tadic in a lineup, which I know is just sort of an oversight. Like you'd probably have him in at least like All-Star Rare, but like I don't want Tadic in All-Star Rare if I can avoid that.
Mm-hmm. I think Tadic was supposed to go in All-Star Rare.
Yeah.
And then Vito getting his injury, I changed this and then forgot to change that. So I think that's what happened there. But yeah, Tadic has got a good matchup. Excelsior, last time they played was 7-1 at home. So I'm hoping something similar. I believe Tadic's got 100 points in that game. I think, if I remember correctly. Or it might be a 94.
Yeah, I mean, any home game's better than an away game typically.
Yeah. I'm hoping he plays well tonight as well. He's got Volendam at home tonight, and it could mean I get a reward.
I think we both want 100 out of this one tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he got 100 points in 74 minutes, 47.8 AA, 70 decisive. So I'm hoping for another smash. That would be really, really nice. And also, I mean, I don't know if you've got any Ajax defenders, but Ajax not keeping a clean sheet tonight, on the topic of, wouldn't be bad for me. Would eliminate some of the defenders and whatnot in my competitors lineup. Sorry.
Yeah, I have Timber in the lineup, but my lineup is dead for this week, so I'm totally fine with Ajax conceding today. And I mean, Ajax concedes every game at this point anyway, so.
Yeah, true, actually, true. I wonder if the new goalie is going to help with that. I think these three lineups, I mean, All-Star Rare isn't horrendous. Like, I think there's definitely potential for like a tier 3 there if things go right. But I would say Second Division Pro is... I do enjoy playing this because the actual points to get a reward is quite low. So it's quite fun to play a lineup like this because realistically, I think it's like 300 and something points to get a tier 2. Like it's low 300 points. So it's a fun one.
It's definitely attainable. And actually here, Haber, we have a new, I believe, idea of why we don't build before Thursday. So if you go back to your rare lineup, luckily I just noticed this, but Hoefler is actually suspended. He got picked up another yellow yesterday to get suspended.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, let me see. I don't know if I have any replacements, actually. Do I have any replacements? Can I... Okay. Oh, am I not using Salva Sevilla anywhere?
It would make sense. It would make sense if you're not using them. So there you go. You just plop in a new guy.
Perfect. Yeah, he's definitely the least risky out of Messer. I mean, Schaefer's out for sure. Messer
But you got to go
could not
check.
play.
You got to go check to see if Vito Van Croy's on the line, because if Vito Van Croy's on the line, we got to change that out.
I don't think Vito Van Croy's in a lineup. I did take him out. Yeah. So I went.
All right, you already made. I saw you made Tuma and with Sala. So yeah, so like
Yeah.
you have Jip. Exactly. That's there. There's a couple good examples of like why I try to build as late as possible. Like obviously for me, it's more difficult because I'm American. So building for me, I have to do it on Thursday. I don't have time on Friday morning or Tuesday morning to do it. But there's lots of stuff that can happen. Like we had an injury to one of your guys yesterday, and we had a suspension that wasn't known about until yesterday. So like two guys, and those could change your entire lineup. Like if you take a key guy out of a key lineup, it could completely overhaul everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It's lucky you spotted that actually, because I had no idea. In terms of this lineup, to be honest, with the second division pro guys, it's almost set and forget from most of the time because I don't really know much about the second division of any league really. I know that Poyan Palpo. The reason why I bought this guy is because I actually won this guy his rare card a few months ago, and then he got the move to Venezia, and I made some nice money on that card. So I was like, you know what? He's been hitting some good scores. He does okay. He doesn't score every game, but his AA game is not bad for a striker, for like a classic striker. Like he gets like high 70s with one goal sometimes or one assist. So he's not too bad of a player there to play.
No, I think he's a good fit for what you're trying to get out of him, right? Like he's in the second division, like that. Like you said, the scores are typically a bit lower because there's not as many like elite level alpha type cards, and also people just don't have as many of the cards in the second division. So you have an overall where it's just like it's not as high of scoring. So you have a guy that literally has started the last, I don't know, 12 games for his team, had the decisive like 50% of the time. A couple of the games he's gotten two decisives in. Seems like a perfect type guy to flop into into a second division rare pro type team.
For sure. And they're against Cittadella, who, although I've never seen them play, I know they're 18th in the Serie B, although Venezia are 17th, so it's not like it's a big difference. But you'd hope that a player like Joel Poyan Palo, who's got a history of playing in top 5 divisions in Europe, will be capable of scoring against 18th place in the Serie B. The rest of these, to be honest, I know Debussy doesn't have a very good matchup. He's at home, but FC Metz are quite a strong team, I think, in the Ligue 2. Severa is against 15th. They're 4th. And Miranda's a 15th, but it's an away game, so that could go either way. And then Schultz, I don't know, he's just a random guy I won. So I actually have a shirt from the team he plays for, though, which is kind of cool. The Keeler SV Holstein. I have a shirt from there, so...
Well, this is another injury thing, right? Because I'm pretty sure if you had Pfeiffer healthy, like Pfeiffer would go in that line instead of Schultz, and you would feel a little bit better about it. Because I know Kempe's on the same team as Pfeiffer, and they have a pretty good matchup this weekend in theory.
I actually recently bought Super Air Pfeiffer yesterday. So he's going to be a rotation piece between under 23 and second division pro, depending on matchups, for sure, for the rest of the season. He's actually one that I took a bit of a risk on. I like to gamble a little bit. So a player like this, the upside of the gamble, I think, is definitely worth it because he's a player that has ridiculous scores most of the time. Could be one of the better under 23 pieces when he's back from injury. And as a super rare for 0.9, I don't think is a bad price. I think it's what I paid for him. How do I check this?
I think it was like 0.95.
Yeah. I think that's not a bad price for what he could deliver scores wise.
It's one of those things you look at, and the way I try to look at U23 type purchases is like, what's the price for him as a U23? Is he aging out? And then like, what would be his price if he wasn't U23 at all? And I mean, to me, you pretty much are paying a price where it's like he's not really U23. Like he's a pretty high end player that can score really well. That like, if you tell me you paid 0.95 for those scores, for a non-U23 player, I think you're pretty okay with that as well. So I think the price point's fine. The risk tolerance is pretty good on that one.
Absolutely. I'm quite happy with that purchase. All-Star Super Rare is a throwaway of my remaining Super Rares. I'm quite happy that Yatabare is back because he was injured for a little while. unexpected. I didn't even know he was back, and he scored. Actually, I could have used him in a different lineup, but he scored last week. They're against. I want to say again, it's like a 15th versus 17th matchup. It's like bottom of the table versus bottom of the table. You know what's crazy about this Yatabare card though? So he's got the most this season in the Super League, the most duels won, and I'm pretty sure it's because I want to say, yeah, this game. 12 duels lost, 13 duels won in a single game is absolutely wild to me.
That is a substantial amount.
That's crazy. So, Lassashon against Sparta could be a lot better of a score now for him. Now, I think both Sparta's main wingers are injured, Saito and Vito. So, that could be interesting. Sahina against Konyaspor. They don't have Hads. He's potentially transferring, so that could be an easier match for Istanbul. And then we have Melnyak, who's away to NK Istra, who aren't a great team, to be honest. I think that should be a relatively decent matchup for him. Riezgo away to Ibar. I doubt he'll keep a clean sheet, but he's the only goalkeeper I had for that left. So I'm saying it like I built it, like you built it, but like he was like you said yourself. He's like the only goalkeeper that was left. This one's interesting. Now, this one I'm excited to talk about with you because it's not this week. It's not very good. Is a lineup a bit stronger with Vito, but we've seen Twente keep a clean sheet against some of the better teams in the league. It's potential that you never know. They're at home. Feyenoord struggled against Ajax, who have looked poor recently. This could be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, so this is one of those ones where it's like it's a legit lottery ticket, right? Like the team is set up to possibly perform well. It is unlikely due to the matchup, but we literally can look back 2-3 weeks ago where 20 were away at Ajax, and Ajax picked up a red card. Unnerstall picked up an 81, Proper picked up 59, Guy Small picked up 64 points. So you average like 70 apiece, you average about 70 apiece for them in the weekend. If they average 70 apiece, anytime you guys have a group that average 70 apiece, you are in for rewards, or you're at least in with a shout. And Teddy Tuma is always productive. He typically will be pretty good regardless. Obviously, this was a lot better looking when it was Vito Van Croy instead of Ibrahim Sala. But hey, Sala starts. Cercle Bruges isn't very good. Like, I'm pretty sure, didn't your boy Sala get a decisive last weekend? Because I'm pretty sure you were bragging that he got a decisive. So I think that, yeah, so like, is it unrealistic that Sala goes out there and puts up 72? No, he literally just did it last week versus Sint-Truiden. Is Cercle Bruges any different than Sint-Truiden? No, not really. Like, it's similar type of situation. So it's a lineup that you're not expecting much from, but it can always produce. Like, it's got the right pieces that, like, things go right for them, they can produce. And it is a lineup that, like, all the guys in it you would expect to play, which is typically what you need to unlock the potential to have a win.
Absolutely. Looking at Sunday, Saturday. Okay, so that's going to be a late weekend one as well. I don't like Sunday games because it's just so long to wait, isn't it?
It's the total opposite of things, right? Like, I love Sunday games and you like Friday games. Don't you like Friday games?
Yeah.
I hate Friday games. I literally despise them, just knowing that my lineup could just be dead on Friday by like 2 p.m. my time, and I'm just so sad. I love the Friday. So like obviously times for you are different. So your time Sunday at 11:15 a.m. for me is like super early. That game's like a 6:30 game. So like that one wouldn't really function. But the Sunday at 8 p.m. like the gank game you were talking about. So like that game's like fantastic for me because I'll just be sitting there. It's like 3 p.m. last game of the game week. I'm like, all right, I could have some lineups that are pretty good for that game. Where it's like I hate Fridays.
Wow, I like getting it out of the way early. It's either excitement time or it's like the pain's gone and you can enjoy the weekend. Underdog Rail is kind of like a throwaway, right? Like I don't think any of these guys, to be honest, I think half of them are injured. To be honest, I don't really have anything else for that lineup anyway. These are just all cards I've won in the past, and then All-Star Rare. As I said before, like it, to me seems like a tier 3 potential. You know, you've got Shuhen and Bader, I think Darmstadt are the best team in that league. And Bader is a player that can get those high scores. I don't know how no FIFA will impact him, whether it will be better for him or not. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work, but he has those potentials to get the high 90s, the 80s, the 60s, and Shuhen clean sheet is usually around 60 something. Bossagin has got, again, he's kind of similar to Bader. Like, he's got the potential to get those super high AA games, which is what I really like about him. He went through a period where he was getting 85, 85, 88, 90, 93. He's had some big games. And he's at home against Palermo. Palermo are a difficult side, but, you know, I back him. I think he can do a job. Salva Sevilla is hit and miss. Like, he takes penalties. So if they get a penalty, he's scored, and it's like a 70, 80 game. If they don't, it's probably a 50. And Holozek, Dortmund's a hard game, but this lad has been performing, man. Like, I've been really happy with him recently. He scored in back-to-back games, I believe, or got an assist and a goal.
Yeah,
I'm quite happy with that. Like, it's definitely tier 3 potential.
He's been producing. I mean, the thing is, like, right, like, Bader and Schunen, assuming Schunen's healthy, which again I'm not sure of. It would be like those guys are capable to be in better lineups too, like in theory, right?
Yeah.
Like they're pretty solid plays. The issue is just comes down to what you and I have talked about off stream many times, like depth. It comes down to depth. The more depth you have, the more options you have. So like being able to play like a good matchup in your all-star rare lineup is great because that means you have depth and you have good matchups elsewhere as well. Whereas like if you don't have these guys, it's like, all right, well then all of a sudden my lineups are all worse. Because you just talked about like Salva Sevilla. Is he really going to get you what you need to get? These other guys that are maybe decent plays? No, probably not. But what that means is maybe you just need to add more depth, and as you go, you'll get more players that fill in a bit better than he would. Or same thing, like Holozek, I feel like he might rotate on the weekend because he played midweek. He's played back-to-back games, and he's typically a guy that doesn't just consistently lock in start. So, like, are you, like, fist pumping in Holozek in your lineup? No. But do you have options? No. So you play him. So it's one of those things that just over time you'll get more and more players that are more capable, and all of a sudden he gets bumped down in terms of priority order as you include new players that you like more.
Absolutely. It's nice as well. Like, I feel like the gallery's starting to take shape, you know? I have been, as I've said before in this video, I have been unlucky in the last couple of weeks when it comes to, like, this one, for example, the Vim and DMP, I think was painful for both of us. Like, that one hurt both of us quite significantly.
It probably cost both of us a tier 1 or 0.
Yeah,
is how bad it hurt.
Yeah, and then I managed to snipe you out of 85th place for the reward there in Gas Pro.
You did. You're wine. I wake up and I just have messages from Haber complaining that he was 86th, and I was just so happened to be the person who was 85th. And then he ended up bumping me to 86 last week, and he got the reward. So that was unfortunate for me, definitely. But I was happy to see you get a card because I know that obviously you've had a bit of rough luck. Like this one, just missing out on a reward is a bit rough. Like you would have wanted to see a bit more here from you guys, especially like when you have Carlson have 30 AA and not be able to get a decisive. That obviously hurts. Knowing that like if he gets a decisive, you're in like the tier 1 category.
Absolutely, yeah. This was a painful one. 1.6 to a tier 2, 15 to a tier 1. Yep. That was
talking tough. Like if Carlson gets a decisive there, you're talking like a half an ETH card versus nothing. So like that's unfortunate to see.
That was a painful couple of weeks, but you know, we persevere. I do joke about selling my gallery to Pavel every week. The 5 ETH to Pavel for my gallery just seems so enticing every time that I miss out on a reward.
We saw Georgi Mihailovic in your lineup there. RIP Georgie for you.
I did sell Georgi Mihailovic, and well, you know, the funny thing is I bought him knowing that if he does get game time, this is exactly what he'd do. And I actually said to Sean on a message, like, this guy can play, and if he gets the game time, will be quality.
You talked me into getting him. You gave enough of a. I knew what was coming in with Mihailovic. So like I knew what was coming with Georgie, but you gave enough of a sell that I was like, you know what? I think he's going to be really good next year. And I said it was my worry is more so into next year. I think he's going to be really good next year when some of these other guys funnel out and Georgie becomes probably like the alpha for Alkmaar. But it was definitely it was the full like Haber cycle where you came in with like the impulse buy and then you came right back out with like the impulse sale. And it was a situation where I even told him yesterday, I'm like, you just can't sell him at current price because he's going to go up when he plays. Sure enough, played yesterday, played really well. And I think he shot up like 30-40%.
Yeah, he definitely did. I mean, fair play to Rody Boss, who I did the trade with. In fairness, so this trade, at the time wasn't terrible. A little bit worse now. Geordie's gone up, but this trade brought in super rare Paintsel and rare Teddy Tumor. So I think if those two players can perform well for the gallery and bring in enough rewards over time, I think long term this will work because I can't really afford to have a player like Veerman in my gallery, who at the time was about 0.9. Gone down a lot now.
I think you lucked out from a perspective of everyone else in that trade except for Georgie. And to be fair, like Georgie was the one in that trade I wouldn't have given up. But like Veerman is in the dumpster, which I don't think that's going to last long. I actually think Veerman's a pretty good buy. Not necessarily for you, but I think Veerman's a pretty good buy at his price point right now. And then Gakpo, like I don't know. We've talked about it before. Like I just don't think he's going to be elite. I don't think any of the
No, me
guys at
neither.
Liverpool are ever elite. So it's hard for me to be like, hey, this guy's going to be a legit top end guy. Like he loses U23 in a couple months, and when he loses
Yeah.
U23, like let's pretend he's Salah, right? Like just pretend he's Salah, and you look at Mo Salah, and you're like, this guy's got an L40 of 56.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that just doesn't really cut it for what the price points would be on him. And like you're not sitting there trying to run into a Neymar, Messi, Mbappe, Kimmich battle with Mo Salah, right? And this is nothing against Mo Salah. Mo Salah has some great scores and can produce. Same thing with I'm sure Gakpo is going to have good games. But the issue is you see when he does not get a decisive, you're going to be looking in the like low 40s or mid 40s, and even when he gets a decisive, you're looking at like 70. So is he really going to rip off three decisives a game? No, probably not. That's just not a realistic outcome. But his AA game is just taking a massive hit with this move, and also probably the actual like ability to score and get decisives probably is
Yeah.
taking.
Yeah. I'd agree with that 100%. I think that I honestly think that he maxes out at like 75 now for Liverpool. Whereas, like, obviously, he always had that 100 potential at PSV. I don't see him getting multiple decisives a game very often. And if he does get a goal or an assist, like, I don't see him getting much more than 15 AA.
Yeah, so like quick look here. Let's look at with you don't even have to go to it. Looking at the last year for Mo Salah, how many games has he cracked 80? We have 52 games on register.
How many games? You want me to
Yep.
guess before I
Yeah,
look?
guess before you look. How many times has Mo Salah cracked 80? So above 80, and we have 51 times he's played in the last year. How many times has he been over 80?
I'm going to guess 8.
Five.
5. Wow.
So 10, and none of them have been. Only one of them has been above 90, and it was a 91. So you have 5 of 50 games in which he cracked
And
80
that's
points and got over it.
that
And
91 as
yeah, it
well.
was 91 against
3
Leeds.
decisives.
He had 3 decisives. Like you said, how many times is Mo Salah going to have 3 decisives? Not that many. In
Yeah.
theory, Gakpo is going to be similar to Salah, maybe worse, I would argue. And so, like, you're going to have games where he has 2 or 3 decisives, for sure. Like, it's going to happen. But the issue is like, you really want a guy that when he has one decisive, he puts out a pretty reasonable score. And 71 is just probably not exactly what you want out of it
Yeah.
for, like, this. Like, I've talked to people before. Like, I thought, when you won Sadio Mane, I said, I'm like, sell that immediately because I just don't really see what you can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Other guys, like you have Casemiro. Like Casemiro's been really good for Man U. Obviously, I'm actually shocked you sold him because he's
So
on Man
yeah,
U.
I sold him because I want the Man United version, which I know
Oh,
sounds
God.
stupid, but I also
God.
sold him because I bought him down at, well, actually, ETH-wise, it's basically floor now, but
Yep.
I bought him down for me at £416, and when I sold him, he was up at like 580, so it was a nice profit there. And then the similar thing with Bentaleb. The reason why I sold this Bentaleb card, although I do rave about Bentaleb quite a lot, the reason why I sold this Bentaleb card is because I don't actually think he's going to keep this up. He's
Yeah.
historically never in his life been known for hitting decisives frequently. He's
Yeah.
had a 5 game out of, he's doing all right at the moment, but like, I just don't think he keeps this up. I don't think that he's in a good enough team where he's going to be putting these scores up all the time. And I just, yeah, for me, I thought it made sense. So yeah, I think I agree. Like Mihailovic in that trade is not great, but I think I've done well with Gakpo, Veerman, and Casemiro with the profit I made on that card. Yeah, the Geordie one is a bit annoying, and to be honest, like if he goes back to the bench and his card drops again, it might be one that I pick up long term and hold because yeah, it was a pretty stupid sell.
That's what, like, I mean, we just talked about Veerman. Like, I think Veerman's a fantastic buy today because Veerman is 0.55 right now as his floor. Like, you may even be able to get him below 0.55. And, like, look, they had been abysmal with him on the bench. So it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, it's the same thing with Mihailovic. Like, I told you this week, it was when you sold Mihailovic, it was a bit higher, so it wasn't like that. But Mihailovic was like 0.15. I'm like,
Yeah.
how is Mihailovic ever going to go below 0.15? I can say the same about Veerman right now. Like, is Veerman really going to go to like 0.2 card? No, I don't really think so. I think he's going to play, and when he plays, he's proven he can be really, really, really good. So, like, I just think it's a card that, like, sometimes guys go on the bench, they go on the bench for a prolonged stretch, and then they come back into the lineup and they're a good player again because they never stop being a good SO5 player. They just stop getting the opportunities.
For sure, for sure. A card that I want to pick up is like a depth card. I'm gonna wait a little while before I do it. Is this Zaruki card? I think as a rare, he could be good depth, but I think right now his price is up quite a lot because of this recent 97. I want to kind of buy if he goes through a period like this again where it's like 50, 50, 47, 42, 39. Because I know that he's good for a 55 to 60 most games, and then with a good matchup, a 70 plus.
Yeah, the issue with Zaruki, I think, is like you look at it, and it was sort of what you talked with Bentaleb, right? But Zaruki doesn't really have much of an AA game recently. But like you look at it and you look at like his last 15, and then you compare it to like his previous like 40. There's a pretty big gap. Like he's definitely much better. But to be fair, that could be he's just improved as a player. Like he's included set pieces into his game that he didn't necessarily have previously as frequently. So like Zaruki's a good card, especially like you and I have talked about anytime you have guys that fit with what you already are doing properly, it's typically not ever a bad buy. Like you literally have a defensive stack for FC20. Whenever they are in a good matchup, in theory, Zaruki's also going to be in a good matchup. So like if you're looking at it and you're like, all right, well FC20 is at home against Volendam, you're like, all right, well I also have Zaruki. That means he's in a good matchup against Volendam too. You see what they did against Walwick. They were very good against RKC Volvic. And Zaruki was solid as well. So I think Zaruki makes sense from a perspective of your gallery. Now, would I go out and necessarily buy Zaruki myself if I'm just like going out and buying Zaruki? No, probably not. But I think with your gallery and your exposure to what FC20 does already, it makes sense for sure.
Absolutely. And to be honest, like this is a card that is, I would say, probably a low tier 1, high tier 2, right, in terms of the prize pool. So hey, maybe it's a card I win one day.
Well, you can check it out. Click on SO5 tiers. I'll tell you where he is.
Oh, lovely. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Always find new great stuff in regards to Sorare data that you have. So yeah, it literally tells you exactly what he was given and what he is. So it looks like he's more of a higher end tier 1, like mid to slightly above mid tier 1.
Oh, okay. I thought, maybe. Do you know what it is? My brain is stuck. When I got involved in Sorare was February last year, and that was at the very high. I remember one of my first rewards that was worth basically anything was I forget his name, Dembele from Lyon. Here we go. So this was a tier 2 in Champion Europe Rare, and when I picked him up, I sold him for, if we find him here, I sold him for £707 as a tier 2. What was that worth in ETH at the time? I guess it wasn't. It was actually only I guess it's because ETH was so expensive back then.
Yeah, but that's still, I mean, for a tier 2, that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, so my brain gets stuck in that. So when I get a tier 2 and he's worth about £150, my brain instantly thinks back to this Dembele that I sold for like 700. I'm just like, wow. But
he also won like an absurd heater last year that was not sustainable, and you can tell it wasn't sustainable.
That's why I sold him. I sold him because it was like, there's no way he keeps up that form. So but But yeah, that's pretty much it for the show this week. The lineups are in. I'm excited. I'm hoping that on Tuesday we can get on, and I've got like a solid 2 rewards at least. Would be very nice. I'm getting my hopes up a little bit there, but like it'd be really cool.
Looking at your rare champion Europe pro lineup, I really hope you finish second in that contest this week.
Second to who, Sean?
I'm pretty confident I will have the exact same lineup in there. I don't actually. That one's. What do you have in terms of
percentages?
Bonus, or in terms of like exposure there? Because like it wouldn't really change my lineup discussion. I'm just curious, like if we both finish second. Oh, actually, so if you go to the lineup builder, Sorare Data has actually changed their lineup builder this week. They've actually made improvements to the lineup builder. I haven't. It literally happened as we were on this show.
I noticed that. I was confused when I was doing it. So my Champion Europe Rare Pro, I have Ginter's at 26%.
Okay, well, one second. Let me go to my gallery here. All right, so you have Ginter at 26. I have Ginter at 26.5.
Oh, okay, 0.5 higher. My Flecken's at 28.5.
Okay, my Flecken is at 26, so you have a Flecken lead.
Okay, nice. Messi's at 6.5.
Okay, Messi at 6.5. My Messi's at 6.5.
Nice. Neymar at 7.5.
Neymar, mine's at 6.5.
Oof. And then
I think I'm gonna have
7.
Kimmich lead. Yeah, so I have Kimmich at 9.5.
Ooh,
I would actually say you have a slight advantage here in terms of like our lineup being the same. You would probably win. I would probably get second, unless Kimmich was the one that like had the big scores and was able to make up some points. So I really do hope you finish second in Champ Europe Rare Pro this week.
Do you know, I don't mind. I'll take finishing second if second place gets like a Messi or something. If you can have the Mbappe or the Kimmich, I'll take Messi. I'd love to get a first own Messi, like a reward. That'd be awesome.
That totally is understandable.
Right. Well, that's it for the show. If you guys want to see more like this, then make sure to let me know. I just enjoy doing the content. I'm just looking, by the way, and it's predicting 395 points for this lineup at 43rd. What would that mean for Tad? Is that like a 60-point game for him? Do they think?
It's like 70. It'd be about 70. Maybe a little under. It'd be like 67.
We need. Come on, Tadic, get that 100, baby. Get that 100, Tadic.
Oh yeah. Somewhere around 67. It would be like somewhere in like the 70 range, I think. Actually, it might be like 72. I'm all for the Tadic 100 because I'm actually ahead of you by like 10 points with Tadic today.
Let's go. Fingers crossed. So yeah, that's it for today's video. I'm hoping that we're back on Tuesday with some rewards. I'm very much hoping that. But thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy and subscribe to this channel if you're not subbed already, which is probably most of you because it's a very new channel. Thank you for joining me, Sean. I'll leave Sean's links in the description down below as well to check him out. Probably one of the best SO5 players that I know, actually. Like in terms of just his yield every single week, it's ridiculous. Like this is a bad week to look at it, but like every week it's just a ridiculous amount of high tier cards all the time, like tier 1 super rares, tier 0 rares all the time. Even in midweeks it's big as well. Like absolutely rake them in all the time. So make sure to check him out. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in a bit. Bye bye.